Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Leading Change. My name is Emma, and I have Priscilla with me today, and we're going to be talking about when research points to maybe a counterintuitive outcome and how we should all be kind of addressing this within our organizations. But before I get to all the questions that I've got for you, can you give everybody an introduction?
Yeah, Priscilla Baker, been in the insurance industry for over 24 years. Led digital transformation while I was at USAA, also owned customer experience and did human-centered design, and did a lot of qualitative research on driving digital adoption. So thanks for having me here today.
I'm excited for this conversation because it started in the comments, which are always my favorite ones on LinkedIn, where you shared this exact example that we're going to dive into here. And then we got the chance to get on a call and talk about it. And I got to learn some really cool new things. So can you share that first experience that you and I were trading comments about, where you and your team went down a path of doing some research and maybe what you found was not what you were expecting?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was working at USAA, one of the things that I was responsible for is increasing digital throughput. And we had just gotten some really cool new metrics on, the funnel view, where you can see what the demographics are of your customers who are falling out of digital are. And so what we had found was people that were 30 and under were falling out of our digital claims processes. And, the team got together, and the first thing we decided is, well, it's absolutely not anything other than our experience isn't cool, right? Young people don't like the word comprehensive coverage. And so we went on and we solved that problem. We redid the content, the words. We did some things to make our experience more tech savvy, like text messages. And that didn't really help with the dropout of the customers that were 30 and under. And the team was scratching their head, right? Well, we probably shouldn't have made assumptions. We probably should have done root cause analysis. So we did that. We brought in some customers of every age. And long story short, what we found out is people under 30 years old didn't have life experience. It wasn't about the digital experience. They didn't have a life experience to make a decision. And many of those people who had claims were still on their parents' policy. So they didn't want to make mom and dad mad by making the wrong decision. And so to your question, Emma, about having bias or learning something you didn't know, when we started solving the real problem of making younger generations smarter and confident in the claims processes, we got more throughput. So instead of putting cool words that were modern or doing things like text messages, we spent our effort giving more advice and guidance. And so through efforts where we really solved the true problem, which was knowledge and experience, by giving advice and guidance, we increased our adoption over time of people who would stay in channel that were 30 and under, and we got smarter.
So this isn't the only example that you have of this type of research leading you guys to a more successful outcome through uncovering things that you weren't expecting. So can you share another one of those examples with everybody?
Yeah, I have a really great story because it's funny. Over time and time again, what we see in our daily lives can make us blind to the data that we have right in front of us. And I have a really cool story about that. One of the things in my career that I was responsible for was the photo estimating processes. And when I owned them, I had to increase adoption. We didn't have a lot of adoption. And so we only had less than 1% of our customers doing digital estimating, photo estimating. And so we did some qualitative research and we found out how to design the process, and using human-centered design, we designed an excellent photo estimating process for customers and increased adoption. And we tested that in our MSR channel. And we got adoption up 20 points for digital estimating with a redesigned process. So we got to the point where we were ready to put that in our mobile and .com experiences. And my team, because I had learned from that prior experience with younger generations, I don't just guess on the data anymore. We did research. And we found that actually putting our photo estimating process in our .com versus our mobile app first would have the highest return on investment. And so, when I went to go get this prioritized, and I have to, prioritize against other really great initiatives, every single person said, I do not believe that .com implementation of photo estimating is better than putting it in the mobile app. So what ended up happening is, even though my team had data, that supported we should implement in our .com channel first, we only got prioritization for our mobile app because everybody believed that's what customers would want to use. And look, all of those people were right. We implemented our new photo estimating process in our mobile app and it was successful. But finally, we got prioritization to put it in .com. And the data that we had that showed that .com would have higher adoption persisted. Actually, this was one of my favorite memories. One of the leaders who was in the prioritization decision afterwards, when we put .com and mobile in, came back and apologized and said, I really didn't believe you, but your team predicted almost to the 0.1% how much adoption we have in our in .com. And so, even in the face of data, sometimes what happens is we have these really strong beliefs and we use them to make decisions. And I've learned over time that you really need to give a lot of weight to the data you have. You should spend your effort trying to figure out, if you understand what the data is telling you versus just applying your knowledge only. So I hope that answers your question, Emma.
Yeah, it does perfectly. And I love hearing these kinds of stories because I think it also lends itself to some of the data that we're seeing coming out about younger generations not necessarily being as tech savvy as we all thought that they are, both in the workforce and the way that they interact with consumer-led technology as well. And that some of the trends that we're seeing of adoption of these tools are actually more mature audiences. So I love hearing this research that you guys did. So where I want to end our conversation is with any tips or tricks that you have for companies to figure out how to adopt maybe some of the mentalities that you and your team use to help uncover these less intuitive insights.
Number one, identify the right problem. Like we had talked about with the younger generation, we thought the problem was the experience wasn't cool, but the problem was them having life experience. So identify the root problem, the right problem to solve. Number two, do root cause analysis and trust the information that you get. That way you save precious resources, right? Like having my team do a cooler experience actually probably felt better for the younger generation, but it didn't get us what our KPIs needed us to get, which was throughput, right? So make sure that you're spending your team's time doing the things that impact your KPIs. And finally, what makes us good as leaders is judgment. And it's okay to use your experience and your knowledge to pass judgment, but you need to find an objective way to pressure test your own judgment and test your theories. And when you have information that proves you wrong, trust it. Trust the data. It's about a mix of your experience and using the right data and analytics.
Thank you so much for joining me for the conversation, Priscilla. And for everybody who's watching, if you're not already, make sure you get connected with her on LinkedIn and certainly reach out to either one of us if you have any questions moving forward. But thank you again for joining me, Priscilla, and have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Leading Change. If you liked what you saw, be sure to subscribe and come back weekly for more expert interviews on digital transformation, change management, and emerging technologies.